The day my daughter told me, "Mom, you're too forgetful to drive. It's time to hand over the keys to us." My whole body went cold. She thought I'd quietly nod and agree, but instead of handing over my keys, I called the DMV. My name is Helen. I'm 68, and I live in a small town most people only see out the car window. A couple of faded storefronts, a red brick church, one gas station, and the only grocery store that stays open till 8 I'm old. That's true. My hair went white the year my husband passed, and my knees complain whenever the weather changes. But all these years, that old beige sedan has been my legs, my arms, my last little piece of freedom to hang on to. I used it to drive my husband to chemo, to take the church ladies to Sunday service, to haul bags of apples home so I could bake pies for the kids next door. I still remember every pothole on the way out to the highway. The big maple on the corner of Maple Street that turns fire red in the fall, even which traffic light downtown likes to flicker and make the cops come out and direct traffic. That's the kind of memory nobody measures with a quick little test. My daughter Melissa is different. She lives in the city about 40 minutes away, in a bigger house with a newer car and a job that always sounds busy. Every time she visits, she throws around words that sound very professional: safety, liability, estate planning, optics. She says nowadays you have to think ahead about lawsuits and image. At first, I thought it was just her way of caring. After my husband John died, Melissa started talking about safety more and more. She wanted to recheck my pill bottles, rearrange my fridge, install extra smoke detectors in the kitchen I let her. I figured, well, that's what loving daughters do. But one day, she put her hand on something I wasn't ready for anybody to touch: my keys. It was a Saturday. I'd just come home from the store and dropped a bag of potatoes on the table when Melissa walked in, my car keys dangling from her fingers. She gave them a little shake so they jingled. Her eyes didn't look like the eyes of the teenage girl who used to sit in the passenger seat, learning to drive with both hands clenched on the wheel. They looked like someone who had already decided something for me. "Mum," she started, soft voice, cold tone. "Yesterday you scared me on the highway. You didn't see that stop sign, and you fumbled with the gear shift. You're getting forgetful. You're too forgetful to be driving now." I froze, my hand still on the bag of potatoes, listening to every word fall like a rock. I remembered that drive very clearly. I stopped at the sign, checked my mirrors, used my blinker. But standing there in front of my daughter, with her drawing out the word "mum" like she was talking to a child, I suddenly felt small. I heard my own voice stutter. I thought I was doing okay." Melissa sighed and laid the keys in the middle of the table between us, like a piece of evidence. "You think you're okay. Everybody your age thinks they're okay. But I can't just sit by and watch you cause an accident and get sued. I talked to your doctor, and I already filed a report with the DMV. They'll be calling you soon." The words "I filed a report with the DM5" made my blood run cold. I'd heard of the DMV renewing licenses, kids taking road tests, but I never pictured myself being called in as some kind of problem on the road. In my mind, the DMV was always teenagers in line, not a 68-year-old widow being complained about by her own daughter. "Why didn't you tell me first?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Because if I told you, you'd react exactly like this," she shrugged. "You'd say you're fine. But Mum, you forgot your headlights, you lost your wallet, you almost missed a turn. I'm just trying to protect you and protect the house. If something happens, they'll come after this place too." When she said "the house," I suddenly realized this wasn't just about signs and turn signals. Behind the words safety and protecting you were numbers. Credit card debt I'd overheard her mention, that bigger house she and her husband want but can't afford yet. She pulled out a chair and sat opposite me, her hand resting on mine. But the pressure in her fingers felt more like someone pinning you in place than comforting you. "Mum," she said slowly, "I don't want you to lose your independence, but maybe it's time we hold on to the keys. You can call us any time you need to go somewhere. I'm just doing what a good daughter should do." It took me a few seconds to fully understand we hold on to the keys. It meant every grocery run, every church trip, every visit to John's grave would depend on a phone call, on their schedule, their free time. The street outside my house, that I'd always treated like a doorway I could walk through any time with just my slippers and my keys, suddenly had an invisible gate labelled Melissa's Permission. I stared at the keys in the middle of the table, those little teeth of metal that had been with me more than 30 years, and I heard a small voice inside whisper, "If you stay quiet now, you're not just losing a steering wheel, you're losing your own voice." That night I sat alone in the kitchen, yellow light spilling over the scratched wooden table. My phone lay next to the keys. Melissa had gone home. The door had closed behind her, along with her last words, "Wait for them to call, I'll go with you. Don't worry about anything." Outside, the street was empty, the lamplight catching on the old maple tree. I thought about all the times I'd driven John to chemo, his hand wrapped around mine from the passenger seat, trusting me completely. "You drive, honey, I'm going to nap for a bit," he used to say. I picked up the phone. If my daughter had carried my name into the DMV as a problem to be dealt with, then maybe it was time I carried my own voice there too. I found the small phone number at the bottom of the DMV notice Melissa had left on the table and dialed. "Thank you for calling the DMV. How can I help you today?" A woman's voice came through clearly. I took a breath, glanced at the keys and said slowly, "My name is Helen Parker. My daughter filed a report saying I'm not safe to drive anymore. If you're going to evaluate me, I want to be there. And I have a few things I'd like to say too." There was a brief silence on the other end, then the woman's voice softened a shade. "Yes, Mrs. Parker, let me pull up your file. Please hold for a moment." I listened to the click of keys, the rustle of papers. My heart pounded fast, my palms damp even though the kitchen was cool. Part of me wanted to hang up, crawl back into being the good old mum who lets her kids decide, but the other part, the part that still remembered every crack in Maple Street, wouldn't let me. "Okay, I see it," she said again. "We received a concerned citizen report about 2 weeks ago. The sender identified herself as a close family member. She wrote that you're showing serious memory problems, forgetting your lights, getting lost, almost causing an accident. The DMV has scheduled a re-examination of your license. You should be getting that notice in a day or two." I swallowed. "Those things, they aren't exactly how she made them sound," I whispered, "and I have this feeling some of it was set up." Silence again. Then she said more carefully, "Mrs. Parker, we get a lot of these reports. Some are very genuine. Some are influenced by family conflict. Our job is to protect public safety, but also to be fair. If you feel like you're not being heard, you should come in. My name is Karen. If you'd like tomorrow, we can meet in person. You don't have to bring your daughter." I gripped the phone. I don't know why, but that one phrase, "if you'd like to be heard," made my eyes sting. "I can drive myself there," I said, almost more to prove it to myself than to her. I still know the way to the DMV. I drove my husband there to renew his license more times than I can count. Karen let out a small laugh. Yes, ma'am. You drive yourself. Bring your ID, the notice if you've got it, and anything you think might help you tell your side of the story." "I only have my memory," I sighed. "Sometimes one clear memory is worth more than 10 edited videos," she replied. "I'll see you tomorrow, Mrs. Parker." The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I made a pot of coffee, cut a leftover muffin in half, and ate it without tasting much. On the table, the keys sat where I'd left them. Silent and heavy, I picked them up. The cool metal against my palm somehow steadied me. "It's just a conversation," I told myself, the way I used to tell John before big appointments. "Nothing to be afraid of. You're just telling the truth." I locked my front door and stepped out. The street was quiet, a couple of pickup trucks already gone, their owners off to work. I unlocked the car and settled into the driver's seat. The familiar smell, old upholstery, a hint of the little fabric sachet hanging from the mirror wrapped around me. I adjusted the mirrors, buckled my belt and turned the key. The engine coughed in that old raspy way, but settled into its usual hum. My hands rested on the wheel at 10 and 2 o'clock, just like my instructor drilled into me decades ago. The road from my house to the DMV isn't far. I drove past the red brick church, the gas station, the grocery store sign with sale fading under sun and rain. I put my signal on early before every turn, stopped fully at every stop sign, looking left and right until I was sure. A car pulled up behind me and peeled off onto another street. Nobody honked, nobody slammed on their brakes because of me. I still knew where I was going. The DMV building sat at the end of a street. Low roof, grey walls, a white-lined parking lot. I eased into an open space, straightened the car in the lines, then turned off the engine. "Well," I said quietly, "at least getting here, I haven't killed anyone like she likes to describe." Inside, the space was bright with fluorescent lights, rows of plastic chairs, a ticket machine. I was still figuring out where to go when a voice called from behind. "Mrs. Parker?" I turned. A woman in her 40s, hair pulled back, name badge reading Karen N, stood there holding 2 paper cups of coffee. She held one out to me. "I saw you get out of the beige Camry. I figured that was you." She smiled. "Let's go to a small room in the back and talk, okay?" I nodded, feeling like I was slipping in through a side door of a place where people normally just shuffle by their number. In a small office, Karen laid a folder on the table. I saw a printed report, some stamped forms, a tiny USB drive, and a white envelope with my name on it. "This is the report your concerned family member sent in," Karen said, sliding it toward me. "The name is redacted in our system, but you're allowed to see the contents." I slipped on my glasses and read line by line. My mother, Helen Parker, 68, is showing severe cognitive decline. She's repeatedly left her headlights on, draining the battery. She gets lost, nearly misses stop signs, almost caused an accident on the highway by drifting into another lane. Her doctor warned her about her memory issues, but she's in denial. I'm afraid she'll cause a serious accident, hurting herself and others. I urge the DMV to reassess her fitness to drive. Each sentence felt like a needle. Melissa hadn't sugar-coated anything when she wrote this. She'd painted me as a rolling disaster. "Behind this," Karen went on, "are a few video clips she submitted. I'm going to show you, okay?" I nodded. Karen plugged in the USB and a small screen flickered on. The first clip, I was in the grocery store parking lot. Melissa held up her phone, her voice loud and clear. "Back up a little more, Mom, a little more, more. Oh my God, you almost hit that car. You guys seeing this? She can't even judge distance anymore." On screen, my car backed into a tight spot, a bit off the line, but nowhere near hitting anything. The second clip, I was in my garage, fumbling through my purse for my keys. Melissa giggled behind the camera. "Mom lost her keys again. See, she can't even remember where she puts them, and she's out on the road like this." The third, at a stop sign. A car behind me honked. Melissa shouted, "Mom, stop, stop!" But in the video, I had already stopped and just waited a little longer before pulling forward. Sois. I sat there, part angry, part embarrassed. Karen switched the screen off. "How do you feel seeing that?" she asked gently. I searched for words. "I feel like I aged 10 years in 3 short videos. And I feel like a lot of this was staged. Melissa wasn't recording to protect me. She was recording to build a case." Karen nodded slowly. "I've worked here a long time. I've seen real dangerous drivers on video, swerving across lines, driving into oncoming traffic. You don't look like that, but I also can't just take your word over your daughter's or hers over yours. That's why I asked for permission to do something a little off-script." She slid another form in front of me. "If you agree, today we'll do a road test, kind of like when you were 16. I'll sit in the back, an examiner will sit up front, we'll drive the routes you usually drive. The car will be recorded. That way, when the DMV reviews this complaint, they'll have more than these 3 clips." I blinked. "You mean I'm retaking my driving test?" "Pretty much," Karen smiled, "but not as scary as the first time. If you do fine, we'll have strong grounds to say Mrs. Parker is not an immediate danger. I looked down at my hands, at all the veins and spots. I thought of early morning drives to the store, late afternoons to church. I've been doing this for years without anybody in a vest with a clipboard watching me. Now, some test with a camera would decide if I deserved to hold a license. All right, I said, surprised at how steady I sounded. If you're going to judge me, I want you to judge what I really do, not just what my daughter wants you to see. The beige Camry rolled out again, this time with 2 extra people. A young man with a name tag that read instructor and Karen in the back with a clipboard. Just drive like you normally do, Mom, the examiner said, voice neutral. We'll go through some intersections, a parking lot, then come back. I nodded, feeling like that wide-eyed 16-year-old girl again beside her first driving instructor. The difference was, back then, I was learning how to leave the house for the first time today I was driving to keep from being locked inside it. Back in the office, Karen printed out the evaluation and read it aloud. No critical errors, minor issues, stopped longer than necessary at several stop signs, drove slightly under the speed limit for a short stretch. Comment, cautious driver, good situational awareness. Stopping too long, I snorted. That's probably the only real crime old folks like me commit. We're scared of going too fast. Karen stacked the papers. Now you have 2 options. 1, let the DM5 handle this internally. Use your daughter's complaint and your test result to decide. 2, you can request a formal hearing. At the hearing, you can bring witnesses and evidence. Your daughter, as the complainant, would also be invited. I sat there. A hearing. It sounded like something from TV, not for an old lady from a little town, but images of Melissa with my keys, talking about the house, lawsuits, assisted living, flashed behind my eyes. If I don't ask for a hearing, I said, could my daughter just file more reports, shoot more videos, get more doctors involved? Karen thought for a second she could, and the next time the file would show an unresolved concern on record. With multiple reports, the board might lean towards suspending your license, at least temporarily, while they investigate you. She looked straight at me. I can't tell you what to do, but I've seen people your age get their independence chipped away with the word safety used like a hammer. If your daughter is truly worried, a hearing is where everything becomes clear, for her and for you. If she has other motives, a hearing is where those tend to come to light too. I thought about her eyes, the way worry and calculating fought there. Thought about the whispers between her and her husband I'd overheard through the living room doorway. If we sell Mum's house, pay off the cards, we can finally get that bigger place closer to the kids' school. Thought about her gaze around my kitchen when she'd said, half joking, half not, once you're not driving, Mum, we should look at a nice senior community for you. No point letting this house sit here. Okay, I said at last, feeling like I'd just signed an agreement with myself. I want a hearing. Not just for the license, I want to hear my daughter say to my face, in front of strangers, that she thinks I'm a danger. Karen nodded, looking almost relieved. I'll file the request for you. You'll get a notice with the date and time in a couple of weeks. Until then, you can keep driving like normal. And you might want to use that time to prepare. Prepare how? I asked. Prepare your story, she said. You have more than your memory. You have neighbours, your pastor, people at the store, folks who've seen you drive and live if they're willing. They can be witnesses. And maybe, she hesitated, there are other cameras in this town besides your daughter's phone. On the way home, I swung into the grocery store lot like always. Not because I needed anything urgent, because Karen had just handed me a thread to pull. Hey, Mrs. Helen, the young cashier called when he saw me. Back for more senior discounts. I smiled. Today I'm here for the cameras. He blinked, confused. I pointed up toward the ceiling where the round security cameras sat. My daughter filmed me out in that lot and used it to say I'm dangerous. I need to know what really happened that day. Do you think I could see the security footage from then? He frowned, then nodded. Maybe. If you were in the video, I think the manager can help. Let me ask her. A few minutes later, the manager, a middle-aged woman, came out. I explained the situation. My daughter recorded me in the parking lot, sent it to the DMV as proof I couldn't drive. The manager looked me over, sighed. "This generation, sometimes they think they know everything," she muttered. "All right, let's take a look at that day. We'll see who's really dangerous." In the back room, monitors showed a grid of camera feeds, each square a different angle. She fast-forwarded to the date I remembered, Melissa's Safety Awareness Project. In the corner of the lot, I saw my beige Camry, me behind the wheel, Melissa standing nearby with her phone up. We watched it in slow motion. Melissa repeatedly waved me into a tight spot, right up close to the car beside me. Every time I got the car centered enough, she'd motion, "No, back up more, keep going," then throw her hands up dramatically, even though I stopped with plenty of room. Once or twice she looked right into the store camera and smirked. "See that?" the manager said. "You're driving like any older lady who doesn't want to scratch anybody's bumper. She's the one making it look like a circus." "I know," I whispered, "but the DMV only got to see the circus part, not the whole thing." The manager nodded. "I can export this clip to a USB for you. I'll add a note saying it's unedited footage, straight from our system. If you need me to testify, I might be able to swing that too." I thanked her over and over. In my purse, next to my wallet and license, I now had a piece of truth my daughter hadn't planned on. Over the next few days, I quietly prepared my story, like Karen had suggested. At church, after Bible study, I pulled Martha, the woman I've been driving to church for over 20 years, aside. "Martha," I began, feeling ashamed. "If one day somebody asks you about how I drive, would you tell them the truth, good or bad?" She peered at me over her thick glasses and smiled. "Helen, I will tell them you're the only driver who stops far enough back from the curb for me to get in without climbing. I'll tell them you always go under the speed limit and make teenagers behind you crazy. And you blink that turn signal so long I could knit a sweater in the time it takes you to turn. But I've never once had to grab the door in fear if you're dangerous. Half this town needs to lose their license." I laughed, then swallowed hard. "I'm worried. My daughter's painting a different picture of me." Martha squeezed my hand. "Then we'll repaint it. If I have to, I'll come with you and say it to whoever needs to hear it." I nodded, my throat tight. At the pharmacy, I asked the pharmacist, Emma, about the time Melissa had her move my medicine. "I remember that," Emma said. "Your daughter said she wanted to test your memory, asked me to move your bottle and not tell you I did it, but to be honest, it felt wrong. You've never missed a refill, not that I've seen. Would you be willing to say that if anyone asked?" I asked carefully, Emma thought, then nodded. "If it's to keep you from being treated unfairly, yes. I don't like the idea of older people being turned into little experiments." Each yes was like another small stone under my feet, making the bridge ahead feel less shaky. The hearing notice showed up almost a month later. Every time I opened the mailbox, my heart jumped until I saw that DM5 logo. I sat at the kitchen table, slit the envelope, and read it carefully. The hearing would be on a Thursday morning, in a small conference room behind the DMV. A senior officer would preside. Karen would be in the room. The complainant, that was Melissa, was invited to present her side. I had the right to bring witnesses and evidence. That night I called Melissa. "Did you get the DMV letter?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment, then said, a little defensive, "Yeah, they sent me the hearing notice. I was planning to go in and handle it for you. You don't need to go, Mum. It'll just stress you out." "Why do you think I don't need to be there?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Because you don't understand all those procedures," she said. "I'm just trying to protect you. I'll explain everything to them. They'll see the problem and come up with a safety plan. You're old. You don't need that kind of stress." I closed my eyes and saw her as a little girl again, crying because I was late to her third-grade recital. Back then, she couldn't imagine doing anything without me there. Now she talked like I was a child who shouldn't be present for her own future. "Melissa," I said slowly, That hearing is about me, about my ability and my name. If someone is going to talk about me in front of the DMO, that person needs to be me. You can come, but you come as the person who complained. I'll be there as the person you complained about. That's the bare minimum of fairness. She let out a big sigh. I heard paper crumpling on her end. Mum, you're making this into a big deal. I'm scared. Me and Mark are drowning in bills. I can't also be worrying about a phone call saying you killed someone on the road. I'm trying to take care of everything. You're trying to take care of the house, I corrected gently. The house you've already decided will be yours one day. That's what's making this big. She didn't answer. Then she hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at the phone for a long time. Right then, I knew the hearing wasn't just going to be about my license. It was going to be a mirror, blown up, showing everything we'd never dared say to each other. The morning of the hearing was crisp and chilly. I put on John's favourite blue sweater, wrapped an old wool scarf around my neck, and dabbed on a bit of perfume I only use on important days. Martha met me at my house. I'm not letting you walk into that alone, she said firmly. When we walked into the small conference room at the DMV, Melissa and her husband were already there, dressed like they were headed to a job interview. Melissa's eyes widened when she saw us. Mum, why is Martha here? She blurted. You don't need a witness. I'm here to do what I think is right, Martha answered for me, her voice crisp. You're here to do what you think is right. We'll see who's closer to the truth. Oh, yeah. Karen sat at one end of the table, next to a grey-haired man with a badge that read Officer Daniels. He nodded at all of us and began, We're here to review a complaint about the driving ability of Mrs. Helen Parker. The complainant is her daughter, Mrs. Melissa Reed. The respondent is Mrs. Parker. This isn't a courtroom, but we are obligated to be fair to both parties and to the community. Everything said here is recorded. He looked around. Here's how this will go. First, Mrs. Reed will explain why she filed the complaint. Then Mrs. Parker can respond, present witnesses and evidence. After that, we'll make a decision. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears, but my back stayed straight. Melissa stood, cleared her throat. Officer Daniels, she began, voice a little shaky but clear. I filed this because I love my mum. I don't want her hurt or to hurt someone else. She's forgotten to turn her headlights off multiple times and drained her battery. She's gotten lost. She's almost rolled through a stop sign. Once on the highway, she drifted into another lane. Her doctor told me she's having memory issues. I couldn't ignore all that. She glanced at me, eyes wet. Mum, I never meant to hurt you, but if I did nothing and one day I got a call that you caused a crash, I couldn't live with that guilt. Her husband chimed in with that polished professional tone. I work in insurance. I see what happens when families let elderly relatives keep driving when they shouldn't. People lose their homes. Claims run into millions. We're just trying to prevent something like that. I listened without interrupting. Some of what she said was true. I had left my lights on that one time. I had stopped too close to a stop sign once or twice, but hearing it put together like that, I sounded like I was lurching through town half blind. Thank you, Mrs. Reed, Daniel said. Mrs. Parker, it's your turn. I stood. The room suddenly felt bigger. I looked at my hands, at those blue veins, and then at my daughter. I won't pretend I'm not getting older, I said. And I won't pretend I haven't forgotten my headlights once or waited too long at a stop sign. But there's a big difference between getting older and being dangerous. And there's a big difference between worrying about your mother and using that worry to take her keys. I turned to Melissa. You say you love me, that's why you sent that report. Then why did you turn me into a joke in a parking lot video? Why did you laugh while you filmed? Why did you ask the pharmacist to move my pill bottle just to see if I'd forget, then tell people I can't remember to take my meds? Why did you write serious cognitive decline in your report when the doctor only mentioned a little age-related memory? Officer Daniels raised his brows. Mrs. Parker, do you have anything to back that up? I do, I said, looking at Karen. Karen placed a USB and a stack of paper in front of him. This is the road test we did with Mrs. Parker 3 weeks ago. She drove herself here, completed a 30-minute route with no critical errors. The examiner's comment, cautious, good situational awareness. Melissa snapped her head toward me, stunned. You tested Mum without telling me. I just have old lady ears, not radar. Martha shrugged. If you don't want people hearing your plans, maybe don't shout them in a crowded hall. Emma, the pharmacist, stood up too, a little shy. I'm Emma, the pharmacist at the drugstore where Mrs. Parker gets her meds. I can confirm that her daughter came in and asked me to move her pill bottle to a different shelf to test her memory. That didn't sit right with me. I'll also say Mrs. Parker has always come in on time, always known what she's taking. Daniel scribbled more notes, his forehead lined. He looked at Melissa. Do you have anything you'd like to say about this? Melissa bit her lip, tears spilling now. You want the truth? Fine. Her voice dropped the tremble and turned sharp. I'm exhausted. Me and Mark are buried in credit card debt, student loans, the mortgage, the kids' stuff. We're barely keeping our heads above water. And Mom is here in this paid-off house with a car and savings she and Dad built. Every day, I'm terrified of getting a call that she caused an accident, and then we're dragged into lawsuits. We lose everything. I thought, if she stopped driving, if she moved somewhere with care, we could sell the house, pay off debts, and take care of her properly. I thought that was logical. And yeah, I used every safety argument I had to get there. So congratulations, Mum, I'm the bad guy now. Happy? The room went dead quiet. I could hear the hum of the air vent. I'm not happy, I said softly. I'm heartbroken. Because my little girl, the one who used to cry when she thought I wouldn't make it to her school play, is now able to talk about my house like it's a bank account waiting to be cracked open. I took a deep breath. But at least now, finally, you're saying the quiet part out loud, even if only because you got cornered. Daniels leaned back, chest rising and falling. He glanced at Karen. Anything else, Ms. N? Karen opened another file. Yes, Mrs. Parker went to see a neurologist on her own after her daughter told her she had dementia. The report says no signs of dementia, only mild sleep disturbance and stress. That contradicts the significant cognitive decline wording in Mrs. Reed's complaint.
Welcome to Celebrity Beauty, a place to preserve the legendary beauty and reveal the untold secrets of Hollywood's most famous female stars of the 20th century. Here, you will step into an enchanting world where rare photos, never-before-seen documentary footage, and behind-the-scenes stories are revealed in an honest and emotional way. From the glamour of the red carpet to the little-known moments of everyday life, Celebrity Beauty is where we honor the brilliant legacy of cinema icons and depict their powerful influence on a whole generation of artists and fans.
Daniels exhaled slowly. So we have exaggeration in the original complaint. He sat silent for a long moment, then spoke, voice firm. After reviewing the complaint, the road test, the videos, the witness statements, and the medical information, my decision is this. Mrs. Helen Parker remains fit to drive. There is no evidence she's an immediate danger to other drivers, as long as she follows normal medical recommendations for someone her age. Mrs. Reed's complaint is marked investigated, insufficient grounds for suspension. Because there are signs the complaint may have been used to support unrelated goals, namely control over Mrs. Parker's assets and living situation, we will forward this file to the state's Elder Protective Services for their review. Melissa's mouth fell open. You're turning me in as some kind of elder abuser? We're not turning you in, Daniel said coldly. We're required to report possible exploitation when we see it. What they do with it is their call. You should be glad your mother chose to keep this in this room instead of going straight to a lawyer or the local news. He turned back to me, his voice softening. Mrs. Parker, I recommend you keep getting regular checkups, maybe limit night driving if your eyes bother you. That's advice I'd give anyone over 65. But your license stays fully valid. When to give up driving is your choice, unless and until there's very clear new evidence. That right belongs to you, not your daughter, not anyone else. I felt tears spill, not from sadness this time, but from the feeling that someone had just given something back I thought was gone for good. My dignity. "Thank you," I managed. "Thank you for listening to an old lady." Daniel smiled faintly. "We listen to every citizen. You just reminded us of that." The hearing ended. Martha hugged me. Karen squeezed my hand and whispered, "You did great. Not everyone your age would have stood up like that." Melissa stood off in the corner, eyes swollen, her husband pale. I walked over. "Do you want to ride back with me?" I asked, strangely calm. She looked at me, then shook her head. "No, I need some time." "Yeah," I nodded. "So do I." The weeks afterwards didn't look like some movie ending, with triumphant music and confetti. I still got up early, made coffee, went to the grocery store on Mondays, drove Martha to church on Sundays. I still signalled too early and stopped too long. The difference was, every time I wrapped my fingers around the wheel, I didn't hear my daughter screaming, "You're dangerous," in my head anymore. I heard Daniel saying, "That choice is yours." I made some small changes. I stopped driving after dark unless it was really necessary. I saw the eye doctor and updated my glasses. I did little exercises for my wrists and knees so my joints wouldn't slow down my reactions. I didn't drive too far out of town unless I had someone with me. But those were rules I set for myself, not rules pushed on me through a report Melissa called less. When she did, it was small talk, my health, the kids' homework, the weather. No more safety plans, no more senior communities. I didn't bring up the hearing. I left that space between us like a scar that still hurt. One afternoon, I found a handwritten letter in the mailbox. You don't see many of those these days. I knew the handwriting right away. Melissa's slanted slightly to the right, neater than usual. "Dear Mum," she wrote, "I was going to call, but every time I try, I hear myself getting defensive or making excuses. I'm afraid I'll just turn it into a fight. So I'm writing instead. I know I went too far. I know I used cameras, doctors, the system, everything I thought you didn't fully understand, to build a wall between you and that steering wheel and this house. I told myself it was all for safety, because I was scared of lawsuits and bills. But the truth is, I was scared of losing what I thought would be mine one day. I looked at you not as a person living her own life, but as a risk to be managed. Watching that security footage you brought to the hearing, seeing myself laughing and performing for the camera while you just tried to park, I felt sick. Not because I got caught, but because I finally saw myself from the outside. I've started therapy since the hearing. The therapist says I need to relearn boundaries, to understand that my fear and my debt don't give me the right to control someone else's life, even if that someone is my mother. I don't know how long it'll take to change, but I want you to know I'm trying. If one day you feel ready to talk about what happened in that DM5 room, not just the polite parts, but the real hurt, I will listen. If you never feel ready, I'll understand. I just hope you don't think I never loved you. I do. I just loved you in a twisted way, with fear and greed mixed in, until it didn't look like love anymore. Your daughter, Melissa. I read that letter over and over. Every time something different rose up. Anger, pity, fatigue, hope, caution. I picked up a pen and started writing a reply I wrote, scratched things out, wrote again. In the end, I didn't send it. Instead, I wrote another letter and put a different name at the top. Dear Helen, age 68, and Helen, age 78, if you're still reading this. Dear you, I wrote to myself, if you ever start to believe your worth is tied to a key ring or a plastic license, read this again. You are more than that. You are the woman who drove her husband to chemo for a year and never missed an appointment. You are the woman who drove her daughter to every baseball practice, every exam, every sleepover. You are the woman who drove through a snowstorm to bring soup to a neighbor who broke her leg. You are not just a liability. If someday you truly feel your mind isn't as quick, your eyes not as sharp, your hands not as steady, remember this: you have the right to be the first one to say so. You have the right to lay your keys on the table, call your daughter and say, "I'm ready to stop." That will be courage, not surrender. But do it because you know it's time, not because someone else drafted you into their safety plan. If someday you decide to forgive Melissa, do it because you see her changing in real ways, not just saying the right words because the world expects you to forgive family. Blood doesn't give anyone a permanent pass to hurt you. If one night you feel lonely and want to hear her voice, but you're afraid of tearing down the boundaries you fought so hard to build, remember this: loving someone doesn't mean handing them every key to every door you have. Sometimes love is leaving one or two doors closed so you don't hurt each other more. And if someday you read this and laugh because you've made it through all of this and now you only drive slowly around a few small streets, or happily sit in the passenger seat while someone else drives, then know this: you did well. You didn't let someone else write your story. You picked up the pen, even with shaky hands. With love, Helen. I folded the letter and slipped it into the drawer next to my keys. Outside, a light rain started, little drops sliding down the window and washing away a thin layer of dust. In the kitchen, the clock ticked steady as my heart. That afternoon, Martha called. "Helen, they've got chicken on sale at the store. You coming?" I smiled and glanced at the keys. "Give me 10 minutes, I said. You're about to ride with the pickiest driver in town." I hung up and picked up the keys. They felt just as heavy as the day Melissa slapped them down between us. The difference this time was nobody was telling me I had to give them up. And if one day I do put them down for good, I want it to be on a day I choose, for reasons I understand, not because of someone else's report or someone else's fear. I walked out, locked the door, and opened the car. On the way to the store, I did what I always do. I stopped a little too long at the stop sign. Maybe someone behind me honked, maybe they shook their head, but I didn't hear Melissa yelling in my head anymore. I only heard my own voice, calm and clear. I know what I'm doing. Maybe that's the last kind of freedom an old woman can have, and as long as I still can, I'm going to hold on to it, with these hands that shake a little, but still know the way.
This is the process of uploading videos to the channel and creating thumbnails for the videos. All the best videos, oldest videos, and newest videos are commented directly by me. Not only that, we have read and studied YouTube's monetization policy. We strictly follow the policies on violent images, harassment content, reused content. Finally, we hope that this incident is just a small misunderstanding from YouTube. I confirm that what I just stated is true, and I am responsible for my words. We hope that the YouTube team will reconsider your decision and give us the opportunity to continue to be a trusted partner of YouTube and produce quality videos for the loyal fans of the Celebrity Beauty channel. Thanks.